Hey y'all, my name is Mick. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just recorded this, like, literally 3 seconds ago, but it was so bad that I'm gonna record another one. I swear this is my last one, though. It's just, I think my last one was mildly offensive to me. So it's just as a little warning. 5:54 in the morning. I have not gone to sleep yet. Um, just I knew that if I didn't record it right now, I wasn't gonna have enough time in the morning to record it. And it takes Movie Maker so long to export videos that I need to have it going on while I'm at work. Because it's Monday. I just released a video on Friday. I'm back on this shit. Um, just I didn't have any commissions that I needed to work on over the weekend, and all I was doing was working on my comic, and I was like, I'm kind of like getting bored of doing the same thing over and over. Because when you're drawing a comic mainly featuring one person, you're often drawing the same face from a lot of similar expressions, similar, uh, angles. That's the word. So I was just getting sort of bored of doing that, and I thought, hey, I'll come back to doing this color palette challenge. So I've been sort of dreading this palette for a little bit since I started the challenge, because when I looked at it on the sheet, I was like, oh, these all look like they're the same value and the same saturation. But actually, when I got into it, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. They are slightly different. They're still very, very analogous though, and they are very similar in saturation. There's a bit of variety in value. The yellow is actually one of the darker colors though, but it looks very light, so I used it as a highlight. 'Cause that's how art works. You don't really need to use the lightest color as your highlight. There's a little art tip for you. Um, 'Cause it looks lighter just by value of it, just by nature of it being yellow. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use the word value when I was just talking about it in terms of light and dark. So I was dreading this palette, and I ended up like sketching the background piece, before I started the portrait at all, which I also included a sketch of. I never do that. I get really self-conscious about it. I'm afraid someone's gonna be like, oh, why do you sketch like that? Why don't you use construction lines? You could have done that better. It would have been easier. I don't. I'm not looking for that. Okay. Please don't tell me that I sketch wrong. I use construction lines sometimes, I promise. But like, I also normally do more than one sketch, which I didn't do here. And I do a lot of thumbnails, which I also didn't do here. I'm not do what I say, not as I do. You should you should thumbnail. But I don't typically thumbnail for these color palette challenges, at least not for the portraits. I sometimes do for the backgrounds. But this one, like my initial the whole process is shown here. And what I started drawing was going to be a sketch, but I was like feeling it. I felt like my hands were doing really well, like my hand-eye coordination was having a good day for that, and that day was today. I guess yesterday, now that I'm recording it and it's the morning time. Um, because I think that that's something that people who aren't artists don't understand, because so few people like have jobs or hobbies that necessitate that their hands be like very precise, that they don't realize that there are days when your hands just don't do the things that your brain tells it to. So my hands were doing that today, and I was able to make this tree in a much simpler art style than I normally would, because I was worried that if I went too painterly, all of these colors would get really muddled together because they're very similar. I was also worried that I would neglect some of the colors if I didn't, you know, make sure that they were totally not blended. I don't know what I'm saying. It's 6 a.m. And then I have said this in other color palette challenge videos before, but if I do a different art style than I normally do in one of the pieces, I will also do the same art style in the other piece for the same palette. So this is a simpler portrait than I would normally do. I've done backgrounds in this style before, just sort of like on my own time. Um, I like lineless art, even though I almost never do it. But I've never done a portrait in this sort of style. Um, and I think that I was successful in making it look like these two pieces are in the same art style. Obviously, I put more detail into the portrait because to me it made sense that this tree would be in silhouette, but it didn't make sense that like the whole head would be in silhouette. Like the hair, yeah, I think that with that sort of light shining on it, you wouldn't get as much detail in it. But the face, no, you would be able to see that. Um, so I ended up, sorry if that made a noise just then. So I ended up, adding in more lighting and shading than I did in the background. But like there is lighting and shading in there. So there is a precedent for that. There's just more of it in the portrait, but I did end up using like the same general shapes and the same, you know, not stippling, but I guess stippling, um, to add texture and stuff to the hair and to the leaves, and using the same like lighting sort of halo effect that I did behind the tree and behind the person's head. Uh, so, nearly 7 minutes in, and I'm finally getting into my main topic, which is why I use the art style that I do. Because I've talked about this before online. I've talked sort of about it on my channel about I started doing realism because I didn't feel like I was improving in my simpler art styles, my more cartoony art style. Because, like, with realism, you're drawing, if you're drawing from a reference, which I recommend doing, you can look at that reference and see, well, this is what I was supposed to be drawing. This is like how that differs from the drawing. Here's what I can do next time to fix it. Um, or here's how that differs from the reference, rather. Um, so by that you can like improve because ex- you know exactly what you didn't do right in your drawing, like what you got wrong from the reference, I guess. And you can intentionally exaggerate things, but I go for a more realistic style. But with cartoony art, you can't do that. Like you're intentionally so far away from a reference, if you're even using one, that you can't look at the reference and be like, okay, this is what is different from the reference than in my drawing. You can't do that because that's how it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be super different and very exaggerated. And I don't understand how to do that. I don't know how to improve. I don't know how to draw something because I don't know what it's supposed to look like. And I have no like way of referencing back. Um, but I do simpler art sometimes. I normally don't go further than like a semi-realism. I think that's, the furthest I've gotten in terms of like my YouTube speed paints. I don't think I've done like really simple stuff, but I do that sometimes. But I've talked about this online before, not on YouTube, is that I think that my sort of painterly style is less accessible than my really simplified stuff. And by that I mean it doesn't have like mass appeal, because I keep tabs on what is successful on social media, just in terms of my own art. And I know that when I do really simple art, it gets more, attention. It gets more likes, gets more clicks, gets more shares, whatever. Depends on the website I'm using. Um, but and like my painterly styles, even though I think that they're objectively better, don't. And I've like talked about before how like, okay, well this makes me want to do more simplified stuff, but at the same time I get so stressed and so anxious doing really simple art styles because the whole time I'm like, I don't know what this is supposed to look like. I don't think I'm drawing it right. I don't know how I'm supposed to draw it. Whereas with my really painterly stuff, I can just completely zone out while I'm drawing it. Like, I don't exist for the 3 hours or whatever it takes for me to draw something. But like with simple art styles, I'm stressed the whole time. I'm thinking the whole time. But in the end, there's more of a reward for it. And people online have been like, "Oh, well, just draw what you like drawing." But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I don't really know that I like doing my more painterly stuff. It's just that I don't have any opinion on it. And then a couple weeks later, maybe I'm very hypercritical of that art. But with my simple stuff, I hate doing it. And then right away, I'm like, I don't know what this is supposed to look like. It probably doesn't look like that. And I don't like it. But then everyone else is like, oh, this is very good. And I can sort of come back to it, a little while later when I'm more detached from it and be like, okay, well, I guess it's fine. I can see the appeal. Um, and so sort of with time, it grows on me, and my like more realistic stuff does like the opposite, where where when I draw it, I'm like, oh, this is very good, and then I improve, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know how to draw noses or whatever. I don't know. Um, which I didn't know how to draw noses if I look back at my older stuff. But like at the time, I was really proud of it, and then I think it's something about like, oh, no one liked it. I was really proud of this thing, and no one else agreed with me that it was good. And so people have been like, well, just draw what you like. That's so difficult for me because I don't know what it is that I like. I do like being able to zone out, but then in the long run, doing more realistic stuff makes me unhappy. And then I don't like the process of doing simpler art styles, but I do end up liking the result. And so it's sort of hard for me to like square these things away. In the end, I've done just more realistic stuff just because, it comes, I hate saying this, it comes naturally to me. That's such an oversimplification of like what it means to draw and do art, but it's much easier for me to draw um, versus a more simplified art. Um, but I do it from time to time. And I was thinking about this as I was drawing it. Um, as I was drawing this simpler art, it's still, I would say, semi-realism. It's definitely not more cartoony stuff. Maybe I'll do that for a palette challenge in the future, just to talk more about this subject that I care a lot about. Um, this video ended up being way longer than I intended it to be, but, you know, I'm editing in Windows Movie Maker, so I can't actually watch the video as I am doing my voiceover, so at any point, I can just slow it down a bit and make it longer. Um, can't do that in Premiere. Or I could, but, I like to comment on what I'm doing as I watch myself drawing it, but I can't watch myself drawing it while I record this in Movie Maker. So, you know, hmm, this isn't going anywhere. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know, if you have something you want to say about the subject of choosing what art styles to draw, because it's not really, I don't want to say that I draw simpler art because it gets more attention, but that does definitely affect the way that I view my art. I wish that it didn't, but it does. Um, so the fact that, you know, not as many people care about my more realistic art, that does definitely affect me. Um, and so, yeah, if you sort of have a comment on that, if you maybe think about your art in the same way, or if you have advice for me, I guess. It's just when it comes to art styles, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, no matter what, probably, because, you know, it's just when I pick up a pen, that's what I make. I don't put a lot of thought into it. Um, so it's just that's sort of how I when it comes to art styles are just it's just the way that you draw naturally, you know? Unless you're intentionally doing a different art style, which is what my simpler art style is, but my natural art style is this more realistic to semi-realistic. Um, but so if you tell me to do a different art style, I probably won't. Just because, it would take time for me to develop that habit, and I would rather just not do that and just keep doing what I'm doing. Um, but if you'd like to talk about your own art, hey, feel free to do that. I'm really interested in this sort of thing. So thank you so much for watching. I will talk to y'all in the next video, which will hopefully be a commentary paint, but probably not because I still don't know how to fix all of my problems with my computer. So, bye!